What happens when you cross a sovereign citizen with a First Amendment auditor? Let's find out. I've been waiting to make this video for months. It was originally filmed by a man who goes by the name of Gordys Safespace on YouTube, and unfortunately, he has deleted the original video, probably because of the extremely negative responses he got. However, thanks to the magic of the internet, I can still share parts of it with you. In this video, the filmer claims that the post office allows a person to send a package weighing up to half an ounce for only 2 cents. Wow, that sounds pretty amazing, but to do it, they have to ask to use the General Post Office instead of the United States Post Office. I pride myself in being pretty knowledgeable about sovereign citizen nonsense, but this was new to me. So I did a bit of digging and discovered that the General Post Office was established in 1660 in England and stopped being used in 1969, again in England. This video is taken in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's a bit far from England. Additionally, a postal service created by the United States didn't exist until 1792, at which time it was called the Post Office Department. In 1970, the Postal Reorganization Act was signed, which made the Post Office Department an independent agency called the United States Post Office. Now, the filmer claims that the statute of 1970 states he can send mail for 2 cents, and I assume he's referring to the Postal Reorganization Act since the statute of 1970 isn't a thing. I've read quite a bit of that act, and it doesn't mention 2 cents or half an ounce anywhere. I even did the whole search within the digital document thing, and nothing, no relevant terms to what he was saying came up. It does say that postal rate shall be established to apportion the costs of all postal operations to all users of the mail on a fair and equitable basis, so doesn't really support what he's saying. But since I did the research, I might as well share with you where he's getting the 2 cents for half an ounce thing. It turns out, in the mid to late 1800s, depending on what class you sent your mail, you could pay around 2 cents for up to half an ounce. But, again, that's the post office department in the mid-late to 1800s. The regulation on that pricing has changed many times since then. The filmer keeps asking for someone who works for the General Post Office. Again, this has never been a thing in the United States. And claims their inability to provide him an employee of the General Post Office violates his constitutional rights, which it doesn't. According to him, abbreviating the state on an envelope and not including a zip code makes it a corporate entity, which not only doesn't make sense, it also isn't mentioned anywhere in the Postal Reorganization Act, in contradiction to the filmer's claims. He insists his information is in the Constitution, which it isn't. The Constitution only grants the authority to establish post offices and routes in Article 1, Section 8. And it's a bit strange that he would say that, since earlier he said it was in the statute of 1970, which still isn't a thing. Do you see how ridiculous this all sounds? This is why you need to research your information before you use it. Don't just trust someone who says, "Oh yeah, bro, that's totally legit." Actually look into it. And don't trust someone who sells you information and tells you that it supposedly contains legal loopholes. When a supervisor arrives to assist, she says she can help him, but he needs to stop filming. Finally! Something that actually has to do with auditing. The filmer makes it clear he is filming for educational purposes, which is a good move, but I'll discuss that later. However, the supervisor doesn't care. The filmer gets upset by this and complains that he's being told he can't film in a place where he pays the bills. Fun fact, when the United States Post Office was established, it was created as an independent establishment of the executive branch of the government of the United States. It doesn't receive tax money. This means that when he says, "You work for me," and "I pay your salary," and "my taxes pay your salary," he's not even close to correct. Even if the post office did receive tax money, the employees don't work for you. But that's a whole nother video. And then, he starts spouting off some flat earth nonsense. What?
Did you know that you can't find one real picture of Earth from space? Okay. Did you know there's no real satellites in space? Did you know when the sun sets into the water, that you can take a telescope and you can pull it back out of the... Okay, I'm just making conversation with you. Do you know the water always finds its level? You know the only thing that's ever been in space is your imagination?
I'm not going to get into that. And there's so much to get into. But, this video is not about that. It's about auditing, so I'm going to talk to you about the right to film in a post office. Or, more specifically, the fact that you don't really have much of a right to film in a post office.
But Poster 7 says I can film.
Not as much as you might think. A lot of people have used Poster 7 to argue against me in various videos I make or comment on. And it's frustrating because it's not hard to actually read it, which apparently not many people do. I've already discussed the fact that auditors have the protection of the press, thanks to Hurley versus Irish American Gay Lesbian Bisexual Group of Boston, but you still have to articulate that you are filming as a member of the press instead of for personal use, since the protections for filming for personal use are much more restricted. And most people can't read minds? The filmer in this video stated he was filming for educational purposes, which should be enough to establish he has the freedom of press, but even with that protection, Poster 7 states, photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums when used for public meetings. And that's where most people stop reading. But if they continued on to literally the next sentence, they would see, except where prohibited by official signs or security force personnel or other authorized personnel or a federal court order or rule. Fun fact. Unless the postmaster has said otherwise, the employees have the authority to tell you to stop. They also have the authority to issue a notice of trespass if you don't. But it's a public building. You can't be trespassed from public. This is actually a non-public forum, so yes, you actually can be trespassed from it. And I discussed that a little bit in this video here. Eventually, the filmer was arrested, and while being arrested, he argues that he was never technically trespassed. But that's not quite correct. While the employee never directly stated that he was trespassed, she did give him a choice. If you stop filming, you can stay. If you keep filming, you have to leave. By refusing to stop filming, he made the choice to be trespassed. She also said, I'm going to have to call the cops and ask you to leave. To which he responds, you can call them. So she turns around and tells someone to call them. This is the moment. It should have become clear that he was trespassed. And this wasn't the only time she issued an ultimatum.
And now I'm asking you to either follow the policy,
But I can't read.
address your mail piece, or leave.
The police arrive as he's being told again that he could follow post office procedures or leave. And they even tell the man that if he's being asked to leave, he needs to leave. Could he fight this in court? Well, yeah, he could fight it. He probably couldn't win it because he'd have to articulate successfully that a reasonable person would not know that they were not welcome in that building anymore. Since he's removed his original videos, I'm guessing he didn't successfully articulate that. Shame. I want this video to be a lesson to the auditors out there. When I discuss auditing in post offices with Brian King, who you may know from his live streams as a member of the auditing community, he expressed concern with the fact that auditors are ignoring these facts. If you actually want to draw attention to First Amendment rights violations, you have to actually understand your First Amendment rights and be willing to learn about them when you get things wrong. It's something that I'm pretty troubled by, is the fact that these people will get things wrong, get arrested, and they'll accuse the government or law enforcement of violating their rights, when in fact that's not the case at all. And then when people like myself, and there are other people out there doing the same thing that say, hey, actually, this is what happened, this is what the police have the authority to do, here's how the law works, they lash out very angrily and they say, no, you're a bootlicker, you're a pig, how dare you try to correct me? Well, fun fact, the people who work in law enforcement generally have a pretty good idea of how the law works. So if they're telling you, oh, actually, Pennsylvania versus MIM says you have to step out of a vehicle, maybe look into it, right? I am always happy to answer questions, so please send them my way. If I don't respond, it's probably because I deal with a ton of comments, and YouTube doesn't always notify me about them. If you really want something answered, I recommend asking through Twitter. Obviously, this man failed his audit, thanks to his incorrect belief that he had the right to film in a post office. And of course, the sovereign citizen flat earth stuff doesn't help either. This video is the official, I'm so excited, it's the official transition from auditors to sovereign citizens, which is great because it means I'll have an entirely new group of people who are mad at me for trying to help. I'm just kidding. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stick around, you'll learn some pretty interesting things, and don't hesitate to send me your favorite sovereign citizen video to discuss. You can find most of the original video here, thanks to Degeneration Nation. I don't really support the edits that were made of the video, but it's all I've got. If you like this video, feel free to hit that like button. And if you want more like it, hit subscribe. Until the next time, be good, stay safe.